Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
We are back with Carolyn C.J. Jones. I'm going to call her a friend, first and foremost now, because she really has become a dear friend. She's such an amazing soul in person, and I hope you all get to know this during the podcast. And CarolynCJJones.com. And we got to talk about, of course, what she does besides being an author, forgiveness coach, life speaker. You are just an amazing person. So we are honored to have you back here. Would you mind introducing yourself to our listeners?
Thank you so much, Jill. I really appreciate your introduction. I am Carolyn C.J. Jones, and I am all about everything forgiveness. I instruct about it, coach about it, speak about it, and write about it. And this morning when we get going, I have something from the book I'd like to read.
Perfect. I would love to hear it. Sure.
Okay, you want to hear it?
Absolutely. Let's get right to it.
We're talking about things to let go of in order to forgive. And here's a section on letting go and surrender. As you yearn, the second point to consider is letting go or surrendering. According to Dr. Luskin in the book Forgive for Good, it takes willingness to let go of three things. Once you learn to let these things go, you experience more peace. On the other hand, when you are unable or unwilling to let them go, you will likely find yourself resenting someone or yourself. I invite you to consider the three things. Learn to let go of the need to be right, the need to have your own way, and the need to control everyone and everything. And when you let go of these three things, this comes pretty quickly, actually.
Wow. And that is part of your book titled what?
The Art of Forgiveness, A Promise of Peace.
Beautiful. And would you mind sharing the thoughts behind that, where that came from?
Yes, I was getting ready for a Facebook Live I'll be doing later today, and thinking about the fact that we're almost on the letting go part. And it made me remember all the years I spent not letting go of the need to be right. I had to argue my point forever, and still it wasn't accepted. And I had great angst over that, so I didn't have any peace from that. And then having to have my own way, I'm reminded of the ice cream story with me and my ex-husband.
Oh.
I wouldn't allow chocolate Haagen-Dazs ice cream into the house because it was too expensive, even though it was my husband's favorite ice cream. What was I, the ice cream police? I guess so. Nowadays, the situation would be resolved by just buying my favorite and his favorite.
Yeah.
But back then, I had to have my own way. And that's also an example of me controlling everything. And I got to thinking about those situations and all the ways I've done those things in my lifetime, and how grateful I am today to be aware, to look for them, and to catch myself. And so I present to you, where in your life can you look for doing those things? And how can you perhaps correct yourself?
Yes.
And that's what got me started on that.
Not all of us do. Sometimes we speak without a filter, speak without thinking, right? And do things that we're just not consciously aware that would offend someone. So what's the advice you'd give to someone out there listening about, you mentioned the ice cream story, about, compromise, about listening to others, about, what would you say to that?
Take 3 deep breaths and just be one with yourself. You have the choice at this point to let go of the need to be right and walk away from the situation with it being left as it's left. And you know in your heart that what you're saying is your truth, and it may be the truth. And you can't fight against the river. So go with the flow and let someone else have their beliefs, and you have your beliefs, and you each have a right to them. Don't try and argue with the other person. It's pointless, most likely. The second thing, the need to have your own way, become aware of the ways in which you may be needing to have your own way in the behaviors that you exhibit. Take a look at that. See what's behind it. For me, it was fear. It was fear I wasn't going to get what I wanted. What is it for you? If you, in fact, have a need to have your own way, what is it that's underneath of that for you? Is it fear?
Yeah.
And then finally, I'm sorry, what's that?
No, I'm saying, yeah, you're right. It is fear. I'm thinking for me personally, I'm of course reliving in my head my own experiences as well. Yes.
Sure. Yeah, and it's fear. I think that's typical for most people, Jill.
Yeah.
And then finally, having to control everything. The thing is about controlling people, they are developed, I guess I would say, from a childhood that was filled with chaos and maybe abuse, but it was definitely a chaotic and dysfunctional environment. The child had no control over their environment, and that made them crazy.
Yeah.
Put yourself into this place. Do you fit into that? As adults, when we're triggered, we want to have our own way. And no, that's not right. We want to, which one am I on? The third one. What is it?
The third, I don't know the third.
I'm forgetting it. I'm so
Come on.
sorry.
It's all right. It happens.
Controlling everything. So when we grow up, if we didn't control things when we were a child, if we didn't have that option, we become a controlling person often because we're trying to make ourselves safe. And so take a look at that. Again, see what's underneath of the need to control things and let go of that need. Let things happen as they will and be excited to discover how things are going to turn out. And that's what I would recommend for you.
Can I ask you about what you're wearing on your neck? That's a beautiful piece. Is that a shell? Is that a aquamarine stone? What is that?
It's part shell.
Turquoise?
It's a bear. It's a bear. And it's, let me get it straight. And it's part abalone.
That's it.
Abalone and black onyx. And it has a little bit of a salmon color right there.
Okay.
Right there.
I see.
It's hard to see because of the reflection.
But,
you know, my client, used to do caregiving for elders, and my client's wife gave this to me. It had been in her family for a number of years, and she passed it along.
Beautiful. It matches beautifully with the lipstick and the shirt. And then in the background, you have a teal and pink. I don't know if you did that on purpose, but your background decorations. Did you do that on purpose today to make it all match? It just happened to.
Those happen to be my colors, so
Beautiful.
I keep them everywhere.
Great. And Carolyn, so, I mean, you've shared a lot of your own personal journey and history with us, and now you are helping so many others. Could you talk about some recent experiences with some clients that you're working with, some types of things people are going through as far as forgiving? What are they in need of that can maybe relate to our listeners to say, hey, this woman, Carolyn CJ Jones, can maybe really help me? What are some things people are looking for and trying to help themselves with?
Right. Well, I worked with a woman recently by the name of Cindy. Cindy Sue. And Cindy was resentful of her father for her upbringing because she felt he didn't love her and the rest of the family. She had done a lot of work as an adult, even after he'd passed away 20 years earlier. And she was trying to get some peace with this, and it wasn't working. And then one day she was at a workshop I was giving, and I told my forgiveness story about how I had learned to forgive my father. She was so blown away by the story, and she told me later that she realized that she hadn't gotten anywhere on her own trying to heal this. Maybe I could help her. Maybe I was her last chance. So she signed up for a group coaching course I was giving. Plus, we did some private work. And what she finally discovered was her father loved her and her sisters and mother in the only way that they knew that he knew possible, but that he did love everyone in the family. The experience that she talked about and cited as what led her to conclude this was the way he used to bring Valentine's presents, boxes of candies, to put outside of each family member's bedroom door in the morning, to help them celebrate Valentine's Day and to show them how special they were to him. With that, she began to realize that, wow, he really did love us. And I have nothing to forgive him for because there's no need to resent him. So through our work together, not only did she forgive him, but she got beyond the need for forgiveness because her initial angst was resolved.
Got it.
So that's just one example of someone that I've worked with. I worked with another woman who had just split up with a boyfriend of several years. And she, even though she was the one that did the breaking up, she was holding resentment about him and for him. And she was unable to move forward with her own life without getting all tangled up in these memories. We worked together in some private one-on-one coaching, and she was able to resolve her biggest reason was the way in which he didn't spend enough time with her. And that was her biggest resentment. She expected him to drop everything he was doing after work and come home and be with her. One of the things we explored in her coaching was expectations and the ways in which we expect others to be the way we want. But we have to look at our expectations and discover if they are realistic, if they're real, or if they're too much, if we're asking for too much. For example, this woman could have planned things to do on her own or with a friend of hers while she was waiting for her husband to come home from work. She started applying what I was recommending, going out for dinner with a girlfriend, going to a movie, journaling, reading a book. And she started being less dependent about the thought that he had to come be with her all the time. And she began to let go of that resentment. So that was one way that she was able to heal that wound. And she was able to get hooked up with another fellow about a year later. We talked, and she said that she was in a relationship with another man and that she frequently looked at her expectations and made sure that she wasn't expecting too much, that her expectations were realistic. So that's a real positive.
Well, it's always about finding the positive, right? Carolyn CJ Jones, want to point out your website again with the CJ in it, just to make sure people can contact you. And any other story that you want to share that's really, you shared your own story with us, which is an amazing journey you've went through. Anyone else in particular stand out from your clients that you've helped?
Well, we have the issue of many of my clients remain resentful over their childhood, as I did too. And we have worked on looking back at things, looking at things with a realistic eye, looking at things as an adult, and then going back in time to recognize our inner child and to heal our inner child with compassion and understanding. When we do this, and when my clients have been able to do this, they've been able to work their way through their resentment over their childhood. And so they've been able to heal from old wounds, which has been just beautiful to see.
Mm-hmm. And what about people with dealing with alcohol, with drugs? You've shared your journeys and experiences. Have you worked with those suffering from alcoholism and drug abuse, and how you've helped them turn around their lives as well?
I have. I worked with a woman who was actively drinking, and she was really having a hard time of things. Her life was totally out of control. We worked together, and I told her my story of my drinking, which had continued for 30 years as an adult, all over my childhood resentments. And I blamed everything that was going wrong with me on my parents, and then, frankly, on my husband, and eventually on everyone else I had contact with in my life. So it was always the other person's fault when
Mm-hmm.
something unpleasant happened to me. Well, I had to learn, as
That.
did my clients, that we can't, we had to learn
Mm-hmm.
that we can't expect and we can't have things always to go our way, and we need to let go again of our expectations and look more closely at ourselves and get a grip, get a handle on our feelings.
No, well, that's true. And it's beautiful because we've all been through something. And now what happens is around, I know, unfortunately, you told me this, that story about losing your parents recently. It's holidays are coming up. Is it normally this time of year where, you have Thanksgiving coming up, you have Christmas, you have Hanukkah, you have all these holidays where family tensions evolve and you also miss your family, want to be with your family. And there's also a lot more chaos in the family. Is there a lot of people out there looking to make amends, for the holidays that you help with too? Because that's always a sensitive time, I would think. And especially for those in your business, people thinking about forgiving and making changes around the holidays.
Right. I have coached several people in this area around the holidays, and I always put out a lot of requests and opportunities for coaching with me because holidays are a trigger. We get together with family, we're in these big family gatherings, usually there's drinking, and things get out of control and arguments often start. Our resentments perk up and we get triggered and we join in the argument. Maybe we even join in the drinking. And just a word about drinking, what I discovered since I quit and I observe others who drink is a lot of arguments are simply because people are drinking.
Mm-hmm.
And I invite people to have deep discussions when they're not drinking.
Yeah.
And hopefully that will resolve and minimize the resentments and arguments. But anyway, around the holidays, I work with people to get prepared to be triggered. So we work on their self-appraisal. We make it firm in their mind that they're a good, loving, and kind person. We make it clear that other people have these expectations of us that we maybe can't meet, nor do we want to meet. We're maybe going this way with our life, and our family wants us to go this way.
Yeah.
And it just can't be done for us to be true to ourselves.
Yeah.
So I prepare people for these things to happen. The biggest thing I recommend is journaling. When you start to feel angst, pick up a pen and let the words flow out on the piece of paper. I encourage writing with your non-dominant hand, because when you do that, all sorts of things come from your brain. You see, when you write with your dominant hand, did you try it with your non-dominant hand?
I'm trying right now. I'm not so good at this.
It's much easier.
Wow.
When you write with your dominant hand, it lights up the opposite side of the brain. And that's where your well of information comes from, one half of your brain. Research has been done, and studies conclude that when you write with your non-dominant hand, your whole brain lights up and becomes active. And think about how much more space you have from which to gain information. You have your whole brain instead of just half of it.
Yeah.
And so that's the effect of writing with your non-dominant hand.
Got it. Got to try more of that. Wow. Wow. How was your hand, by the way? Because your wrist, is it healing? No cast. No, wait.
No cast. Here's the incision. You can barely see it.
Yeah, it looks good. How do you feel?
It's a little tight still, but it feels much better.
Now, that's not your dominant hand, is it?
No, that's my non-dominant hand.
Okay, I'm sorry. What were you going to say?
Yeah, I was going to say I look forward to the time when it's back to itself.
Yeah, it's a process. Healing in every aspect is a process. Obviously, that's what you do for a living. You work on healing and helping people, let alone now you have the bones that have to heal, but everything for the most part can be healed, right? And any advice out there, someone suffering today with any angst and anguish and despair, what would you say to them?
Be patient. And most of all, be gentle with yourself. Be patient and realize that answers will come. And they will come. One way you can encourage them to come is to become grateful for the things that are going on in your life.
So gratitude, yes.
Gratitude. So if you bring gratitude into the equation, that helps you down the road begin to resolve the other angst.
And any tips or advice on, gratitude? And you mentioned journaling could help us. Any other techniques that could help with us?
Well, I have a suggestion about a gratitude practice, and that is every day, every morning when you get up, adopt as part of your morning routine writing in your journal one thing for which you're grateful and why. It could simply be that you're grateful that you woke up. And the why behind that is because you have another day to enjoy your life. If you're in the middle of difficulties, you have another day to resolve your difficulties. If you do that every day for 21 days, that starts a new habit.
Yeah.
And pretty soon it grows exponentially, and you begin to see gratitude all around you.
Yeah.
And that just changes your whole attitude.
Yeah. Absolutely does. And oh my gosh, it's almost 2 o'clock my time. So that means it's what time your time? 11?
11.
Well, good morning to
Yes.
you. It's good afternoon for us. What would you like to leave with our
Yes.
listeners today?
Oh, I'm going to repeat that. Be gentle with yourselves. And I'm going to tell you that came from a man that I met in the rooms of 12-step meetings who was a prisoner at San Quentin State Prison for 25 years. And when he got out, he started walking everywhere, the hills, the mountains, and he's known as Walking Don. And his best advice for everyone was always be gentle with yourself.
Yeah. Great. Well, thank you so much. And CarolynCJJones.com. I know that's a great form of contact. What else would you like to leave with our listeners today?
My email, CarolynCJJones@yahoo.com. And you can call me on my number, 415-686-0888.
Perfect. Well, thank you for being here, for joining us again. Happy you're healing, and have another happy, healthy week. And did you think about sailing? You're gonna find someone with a boat soon? You got friends, right?
I'm going down on Sunday to visit my old dock mates that are back in town.
Congratulations. So will you get out on the boat? Were you going to go to a pier?
Yes. Well, I don't know if we'll take it out, but we'll be visiting on the boat.
Great. Would love to hear about it. See, there's your passion. You're smiling up. You have a great day. Enjoy yourself. Thank you so much, sweetheart. Have a great day. And to all of our listeners, please stay tuned. More of the show is on the way. Bye-bye.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.